What's up, folks at home? Welcome to another episode of the 10 Horse Monte YouTube channel. 10 Horse Monte Fishing, the 10 Horse Monte Fishing. I put fishing on the back side of it a while back, and I don't know if it helped or not, but anyway, that's what we are. It's Tuesday Night Live
and stuff.
Yeah, people can find it better. It's like fishing. I don't know, because 10 Horse Monte doesn't really say anything about fishing. It's just.
Yeah, but I remember I'm terrible with names, dude. And like, I can go in the text of my phone and type in 10 Horse Monte and you pop right up. And I'm like, yeah, I know who that is, dude. Cool.
Good. So it worked. Yeah. Right on. So we piggybacking on what we were just talking about. Something that my buddy Ron, he lives on a lake that it's about 3,000 acres. It has tournaments all through the winter, and the fish get offshore. It's one of the, it's really a unique lake for our area. It's a place where you can actually practice like the spoon and the little Damiki minnow, that kind of stuff. Because a lot of the lakes over here, a lot of the other lakes, you can't do it. And
really,
yeah, it doesn't work as good. I'm still working on it, but I haven't incorporated it in. But
you're close to what's the one in Missouri there? Table Rock and stuff.
No, I'm like 5 hours away from Table Rock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm closer to Illinois. I'm closer to Southern Illinois. I'm right on. I'm in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, so I'm right on the Mississippi River, and right on the other side is like.
It's a lot shallower. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different, but this other lake, Lake of Egypt, they actually get out deep, and you can do that kind of stuff like you can in those highland reservoirs.
Yeah.
But we were talking about how. And I've been seeing this happen lately, and it's always been like this, but like you do the traditional stuff where you idle around with your side scan and you find the balls of bait and stuff and some bass relating to them. And those fish are hard to catch.
Yeah.
Unless you have an A-rig. Seems like an A-rig is the only thing that can like seduce them.
Yeah.
But if you can find those fish that are 20, 30 yards off to the side, just kind of hanging out, those are the fish that you can catch. So you kind of got to find the areas where there's a lot of shad, and then you got to move away from the shad or focus on like smaller, like little small pods of shad.
Yeah. And
look for the actual fish that are sitting out away from the shad, because man, it's like you find the juice and you're like, man, look at all those shad, look at all those bass. They're chasing them around and they ignore your stuff because there's just too much eye candy going on. You know, there's too many. Like sensory overload for the real stuff. So why would they look at your stuff? You gotta find the fish that are in the area to feed, but they don't have all the stuff around them, and you can kind of seduce them into biting your stuff.
I had that happen the other night. Like in the evenings, all the bait rises, and so like I was catching them kind of deeper, like you're saying, like 14, 15 foot. And about like 3:30, because the days are so short now, like that low light kicks in around 3:30, 4:15 or so, you know?
Yeah.
And all the bait from the creek channels and the river channel like rises up out of like, because it must be like laying down on the bottom in 30 foot, like at least it was that day. And it all rose up, and like you can still kind of see the fish that were under them, you know, on forward facing. But I had the same shit happen, dude. Like literally they won't look at it. Like you could throw anything and like reel it through the bait. You'd feel like your bait bumping the bait, and it just clouds up. And it didn't happen until later in the day. Like I got out there super early. It was clean. There's balls of bait here and there, but not much. But the fish are all potted up, you know, groups of 4, groups of 5 here and that. And they would bite when you burn that A-rig over them. But dude, when that bait rose at like 3:30, 3:45, it was done, dude.
I know. It seems to me like, you know, in the summer, that sweet time is right there, like the last hour.
Yeah.
But in the fall, I don't know. For me, it seems like it gets tough a lot, like right in the last hour for whatever reason.
Depends.
The last 30 minutes.
When they're schooling, though, like that's the thing. Like we get a couple different versions of fall. Like you get like schooling fall, and dude, schooling fall when the light goes down, it's stupid. But like bait ball, like submerged, like giant clouds of bait fall when they're underwater, like late fall, I guess it'd be early winter. It's freaking rough, dude. You almost want to get away from the bait, dude. Like I used to, when I was in Florida and catching all those like giants on the schools, I would literally like, you could go catch like 30 fish, whatever, out of the school, and they're all lined up, and it was awesome. And you catch like a bunch of 2-pounders, 3-pounder, maybe you catch like a 4 or 5. But I always found when I'd catch like those fish that were like 11, 9, 8, it was always when I like long lined like 30 yards to the right. Like I'd see like 1 or 2 fish, or like I'd get off of them, and it was like just like if say the school's lined up like this, I would like long line across like the first part of the tip or something, or like the back side of it. And it seemed like the bigger ones they'd kind of hang around. Like, you know, when you catch like a 2.5, 3 pounder and like a 5 is right behind it kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like they hang out like near them. And when the stupid fish, like the big group of fish, get all riled up and they do something, then the big one's like comes over and he's like, hey, what's going on? Let me get some action. You know, like they're around, but they're not like in the midst of it.
I think there's a lot of like the little fish do a lot of work for the big fish sometimes, especially when they're busting shad. You know, the kind of the wounded shad drift down, and the big ones and they're sucking it up. You know, they're smart, man. They've been in the water for a while. They see how it goes down, and they're like, why should I expend that energy when these young bucks are going to go out there and swim?
We see it with the spots all the time. Like you'll see like spots coming and blowing up, and it's a bunch of like 10-inch rat spots. And then all of a sudden, like they'll get it going, you know, chasing the bluebacks, dude. And then you'll see, and it's like the 1 4-pounder that just like came up from 50 foot because he saw them getting all crazy. And it's the same thing. I mean, but that's when you can actually catch those fish sometimes too, because they won't eat unless they're all like triggered, you know. So them little ones get going, and then you trigger them bigger ones.
Don't you hate it when you go down a grass line? This happened to me the other day, and there's not a lot going on, but it looks good, and it's an area where you've caught some fish, and you know, say you're punching or you're throwing a frog or something, and you get down the bank, and it's like 50-yard bank, no sniffs, no nothing, and then all of a sudden, just big fish just blows up off the grass line about 30 yards behind your boat, and you're like,
oh yeah,
what was the deal? Where did that come from? You know,
it happens on the river all the time, dude. I actually I shot. I'm gonna put it up actually Thursday. I got this. I don't have one. I have one outside, but a dude that I know is making this buzz bait, and it's basically like a swinging buzz bait, like almost like a wobblehead style buzz bait. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to play around with it, and there's a good river for that's got grass now. And I went out and just going down the bank, tossing it, catching a bunch, dude, like 2-pound largemouth, 1.5 pounds, you know, maybe miss a spot or two. And then, like you said, it's funny with that river because I think so usually in those rivers they relate to like stuff, right? So there'll be like a current break and stuff like that. But like in fall and early winter, when those bait balls are there, it's super like manic, dude, because those bait balls drift down the river, or they kind of like work. Some of them are stuck behind like current breaks and that, but a lot of them, I think that bait just kind of like drifts down river, or it hangs around something, but it's not like on it. And dude, that happens all the time. Like you'll go over a spot and you're like, this is the juice. You'll make like 10 casts to it, you know, to try to trigger something. And you're like, okay, I didn't catch nothing, or maybe I caught a 2-pounder. And then you get past it, dude. And like 20 yards off it, like you're saying, like something giant blows up. And you know, it was just one chasing a bait ball that just wasn't triggered when you were hanging out, you know?
I think it could be also like, you know how when you're fishing in an area and it's kind of flat and calm and nothing's too going on, and then a boat comes by and it makes a big wake, and it just kind of works everything up. Mm-hmm. Maybe like your boat going down that grass line and your trolling motor making a little noise, and
that's actually a really good concept.
It might spook some of the bluegill, or just kind of loosen them up, and they're moving around a little bit more, and then one of them sneaks out and boom.
That's why I love and hate airboats. I've caught more fish flipping like shallow grass when an airboat goes by than anything else. And I hate the way they sound. They're obnoxious to me. I just, whatever. But dude, when they buzz a grass line, you're going to get bit. Like something. It might be like a bluegill biting your deal, but like everything gets churned up and gets all skittery, dude. And them fish know that it's time to hunt something down.
Yeah. So I posed a question before we went live. What's your favorite brand and color of jerkbait? Betha says a Mega Bass Ito Natural or French Pearl Orange Belly.
And that's nice.
We've also got another Mega Bass fishing 110, Ito Clear and Albany Bone. Actually, he said the 110 Junior. Springtime, he has more luck with the Wagasaki.
Wagasaki's sweet. That's like the best all around that you can get. You know, it's funny. On Guntersville and in Florida, it makes more sense, but Guntersville, I didn't figure it out until it was either last year or 2 years ago. Gold is a huge player. And it's literally the last thing I would ever pick up. But I had a buddy who's a guide out there, and it wasn't even the jerk baits. I think we were talking about spinnerbait blades or something like that. And dude, Guntersville is like, it's green fertile, but it can be very clear, but it's like this green kind of, it's nice water, you know, it's pretty. It's what you would think you'd throw like a silver blade in. And he's like, bro, go's the deal. And this dude's been there doing this game for like years. He knows. So I'm like, all right, you know, I'll take a grain of salt. And I went out and started dicking around with a gold jerkbait, dude, and I smoked them on a gold jerkbait. It's the most ugly looking thing in that clear water, but dude, they will chomp it. Like I've got there's a Megabass like perch one. It looks like a gold perch. It's like got stripes on the side and that. It's badass, dude. And then even the Berkeley Stunner with the orange belly and the like straight gold. It looks like something a walleye guy would throw. Dude, they smoke it.
Yeah, I saw a video you did on that, and dude, I've had some success on that Berkeley Stunner too. Like that actually the perch color was the one that I was throwing. I don't know if that's the same one you're talking about. It's more of it's just kind of a perch.
I don't think it is in the Stunner. In the Megabass, it's more gold. But you know, it's funny you mentioned the jerkbaits because I've been looking at jerkbaits a little differently lately because what I've been doing is sinking them like down. And that Berkeley, it slow sinks. So, you know, and it's not good for every situation or whatever, but it does that slow sink. And I've been trying to fish a jerkbait like out of range. So you'll use like that, what is it, the 112+1, I think they make or something. It's a little deeper one. So you crank it down, like, you know, get it down a little bit, and then it'll start slow sinking. And when you're talking about like forward facing active target fish, you can actually like sink it down. Now it takes like piss full forever, dude. It's obnoxious. So you either have to do it when you're like fishing structure, fishing a school, or when it gets really cold when they kind of stay in place and they don't move as much. But for that deal, it's kind of cool, man, because you start putting a jerkbait down at like, I had it as deep as like, I think 15 to 20 feet. Now it took like ungodly forever to get it down that far. But if the water is clear enough, if you can get it down where it's like 5 foot, 6 foot, 7 foot, even above them, they'll come up to it. So you don't got to sink it down like crazy. You got to get it down, but you can draw them up, dude, if you get it down like a reasonable amount, and it keeps on sinking. Like when you kill it, it'll just kind of ever so slowly edge down, but it's totally like a forward facing deal.
I caught a fish. I caught a 5+ pounder last winter on that perch color Stunner 112, I guess it is. But I was scoping, just kind of scanning around on this point. It was kind of a flat, slow tapering point that kind of bottomed out in about 20 feet, but it rolled off on the sides pretty good. So you had some depth off the front of it. And there was a ball of shad, not a huge ball of shad, but something that was it looked like it was about, I don't know, like 5 or 6 feet around basically. And it was just sitting just a little bit up off this point. And I'm looking at it, and I saw a brighter, like a really bright return in there. And this lake's got like striper too,
right?
But normally the striper, they're fuzzy, they're fuzzy, and they're always moving around. So this was a hard return. It was sitting there, and I'm like, that's big ass largemouth sitting there. You know, the water temp is like 41 maybe.
Damn.
And he was sitting down there. That ball shad was down like 15 feet, just right where that point kind of rolls off towards me. And I wasn't quite sure what it was, you know, like it could have been a catfish. I wasn't 100% sure, but then I seen it come out. So the ball of shad's like right here, and it's kind of in here, and I just seen it do this, and I'm like, okay, all right. So I fired my jerkbait. It was that Stunner, like you're saying, way past it, reeled it down, and hit it, and just like you said, man, just so slow, and it got about, I don't know, it got about 5 feet away from the top of that ball of shad, and I was coming down right on top of it, and it's just falling. And I'm like, I didn't even see the fish after I saw it the first time, so I didn't know if it was there. And then sure enough, as it gets like right here, I see this fish come out, and the jerkbait just falls right on it, and I see it like become one, and I set. It was so cool because the whole thing took like 20 seconds. I'm just sitting there watching it, being patient. And then the hardest thing is to not pull it away from them when you know what's getting ready to happen, and you got to wait. You got to kind of just tighten it.
Because they're only going to follow it so far. Like even if you got to work the fish, like you get 5 or 10 feet out of them, unless they're like hyperactive, you get 5 or 10 feet, and then all of a sudden you see that fish just go, I've had enough. and then they freaking leave, dude. And you're committed to that cast because you sink it down so much, and it's a headache. But it's a lot like glide bait fishing with just like a downsized deal. But it's all that neutral buoyancy shit, dude, is really the game right now. Like that's the key to unlocking those fish that we're chasing around, like those singles that are kind of just floating around in the ether,
Yeah. Doug from Auto Trieve says clown is still one of his favorite colors.
Yeah, that's old school, dude.
Yeah, that's a good one in really stained water too. It's been one of my favorites. Darius King says Table Rock. Shad, that's another good one. There's a bunch of colors. Yeah. What's up, Stephanie? Say hi to some folks here before we start rolling really good. Bradley, Michael, what's going on?
Yeah, Michael said I look like I'm freezing, and that's probably because I am, dude. It's not even that cold here, but it got like super like clear skies, and the temp kind of dropped about 10 degrees all of a sudden. And dude, all of a sudden I'm freezing. And I worked out today, so I was all sweaty and freaking damp. So
yeah, you've been working out?
I always do, yeah.
Yeah, cool, man. Good. I started I've been consistently working out forever, but I started cutting back on carbs, man. Like
that's the trick, dude.
Kind of a semi carnivore type diet, but just cutting out all as much sugar, as much carbs as I can. And I've only been doing it for like a week and a half, but it makes a difference because that's the stuff that causes like your inflammation, your hips and your bones and stuff, all that.
You just get lazy, dude. Like eat a salad and then the next day eat a sandwich and figure out which time you want to like take like a nap, dude. And it's after you eat the sandwich,
Yeah.
Like, it's
yeah, I was talking at Thanksgiving. I was like talking to my cousin, and I just told him, I'm like, dude, it's not the turkey that makes you tired. It's like the 4,200 calories that
Dude, I still don't know. Like them old timers, like I give them all the credit in the world, but like I don't know how in the hell those guys they'll go and eat breakfast and go out and like bacon, toast, paint, all that stuff, dude. And then they go fishing, and it's like, dude, haven't taken a nap in like 20 years, but if I did that, I would be out, bro. Like I'd have to go lay down. I don't know how and then they eat lunch and stuff and go, and I'm like, dude, I can't pull that off. I'm a lightweight, I guess, dude. I can't handle that.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't eat as much as I used to, and that's good. Stuff catches up with you, man. Let's see. Oh, the Jackal re-range. Dax is saying he likes the Jackal.
I gotta play around with that one. I've never bought. You know what I scored actually is a couple of the new. They're like the Duo Raid jerk baits or something. They're kind of cool. They make one it's got this giant ass bill on it, dude. But I can get that thing down to like 12 feet just off the bill. Not even like sinking it or anything. But dude, you just do soft jerks or you do a slow reel to kind of crank it down. And dude, it gets down, and it's not a 110. It's like a 100. So it's a little bit shorter and stubbier, but just as thin, and it's kind of naughty. I've been playing around with it a little bit, and it's kind of interesting.
It's a Duo Realis?
Yeah, it's a Duo Realis.
Okay.
One that doesn't get enough love, and my buddy Jacob Wall put me on it, is the Nishine. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but Nishine makes this jerkbait, dude, and it's a little bit bigger than your traditional jerkbait, but that thing is naughty, and it comes with a little dangle weight on the front hook, dude. I smoked them on Toho on that, and like when the spots, it's more of a pre-spawn deal, like with the spots and stuff down here. But you want something like a little bit bigger profile. It's much easier to cast than a 110. But that thing's nice, dude. It really draws some bites. Got a little bigger hooks on it, so it's a lot more manageable when you hook a big one. You're not as like freaking out. But that's a fun one to fish.
The Lucky Craft SP78DD is an old school. I mean, I think that's that may be the first Japanese bait that kind of got that may be the first jerk bait that came over from the JDM market like way a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was like that $15-$16 price point where people had a hard time. It's like 3 megabass, but that 78 SP DD is still a really, really good jerk bait that you don't really hear anybody talking about that anymore. But man, I've caught a ton of fish on that. There's one called bait. It's called bait fish. It's a like silver sides, black back.
Yeah.
kind of white belly, and then it's got a little bit of a red dot on its throat.
Huh.
It's a discontinued color. If you ever see that, and I know you
Right.
kind of pilfer around tackle shops in the area. If you see that, man, snag it. It's a good one. It's a really good little bait.
I can't get them to eat that one anymore. I got like the old, I don't even know what they're called, but like the old traditional like Lucky Cross and that. And then you remember the Stacy?
Mm-hmm.
You got that one too. And I can't get them to follow those. I don't know. It's probably in my head, but those were like the club. It's funny too, you say, because I remember when like Lucky Crock came out and like price points were like $15.99. I think they had that American shad with the different finish, and I think that one was like $18.99 or $19.99. And dude, that was like, people were freaking out more than they do with the Mega Bass back then. They're like, dude, this shit is expensive, you know? And now it's a blow in the wind, dude. Like a standard jerkbait from like a mass production deal, like a Berkeley, like that Sonar, I think is like $11.99, dude. Like it's, you know, the price points on these things they've increased like exponentially. It's not even inflation. Like they were that expensive beforehand, you know? It's really, the market has changed with these kinds of baits. I don't know if they're that much better or if it's just the price points up there and people are willing to pay.
Yeah, I mean, if you pay it, they're gonna
charge you, dude. That's the game, right?
It's like we're going a little bit sideways here, but that's like years ago when like carry-on luggage, they started charging for carry-on luggage because the price of jet fuel went up.
Yeah.
Well, it's came back down since then, and you still got to pay to have carry-on.
We're gonna pay.
Or not carry on, but you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you mean. That's what I'm worried about with all these games, even with the boat pricing. Like everyone's like a lot of that chatter with, you know, not just the accessories, but, you know, boat pricing and all this in general. Like I'm concerned that I don't see an end. Like I don't see a rewind, like, cause you can never, it's like life, dude. You can never turn back the clock. You always move forward. And even if inflation and things like that come down, I don't know if we're going to see like the price points on these things actually reflect that, you know, and it is becoming sort of unmanageable. So I don't know what's going to happen, because it's creating a problem now, you know, so we'll see.
Yeah. Speaking of problems, I wrote down a few questions, and we'll do like loose topics or whatever. We'll just kind of flash on them, whatever. But I mean, there's so much talk right now on podcasts about, you know, tournament fishing and forward facing sonar and all that. And I was like, how do we kind of wrap some of this into a package and not go out and not just cover the same stuff over and over? But what do you think, in your opinion? Do you think tournament fishing in general has, well, let's just start out like this. Like, what's your thoughts on the effects of tournament fishing on lakes? Because Guntersville gets hammered, and it's had some down times, you know, because of tournament fishing. I think of Kentucky Lake. It's 2 hours from my house. I mean, Kentucky Lake absolutely sucked for several years. It was carp, no grass, but it was tournament fishing just as much. You didn't hear that get talked about as often.
Well, and technology, like they knew where those fish were and they beat the piss out of them.
True. And it, you know, once the grass was gone, Rock Lake, it's a lot easier to find them, you know, with your electronics. But how big of an effect do you think tournament fishing has on a fishery?
I mean, this is a cop-out. It really depends on the fishery. I mean, it definitely hurts, you know, especially when guys are catching them deep and then bringing them to the scales and not gassing them. And even if they gas them, I think a lot of those fish die just because they're so shocked. I've always pissed and moaned about tournament fishing. I don't like the way the fish get treated. So it's maybe not even an effect thing. It's just, I really like doing this. I enjoy it, like catching fish. I think everybody does. And I don't want to see that jeopardized. I was in a situation with fishing those lakes in Florida where these were not unknown, but untapped trophy fisheries. So like they were gems, dude. And they still are. But when you mix in some of that tournament stuff, and even not even tournament guys, but guys beating stuff up, and maybe not everybody can go catch fish. I don't really give a shit, but like you have to treat the resource, and it sounds really lame, but with as much respect as it kind of like offers to you. So like I personally think like a lake that's kicking out giants, like so OH Ivy, I'm concerned, like catch the fish, have some fun with it, but you got to be careful about how many of those fish are dying, dude. You can't go and live well like 5 bigs and want to do that big hero hold and expect all those fish that you're catching in 35 foot that are suspended to live, So like, that's my only hold up with it. Some of these fisheries too, Guntersville is a unique situation because I think personally there's a lot more fish out there than one would ever imagine. Some of the stuff that we see on forward facing, like fish that won't eat, like the numbers that are out there are insane. And it has such a good ecosystem for growing larger than normal fish for this area that it's pretty resilient. At the same time, though, the first fish to die in somebody's like live well bag is going to be that 6, 7, 5 pounder, and you don't want to see those fish getting taken out of the mix between their genes and just in general. You want the big ones to hang around because it does take them a while to get there. So I'm not a huge fan of how much tournament fishing it is. I guess dominating sort of the cultural aspect of fishing and also the way it ends up affecting the bodies of water. But I'm also realistic. Like you're not going to change that, so you either adapt and kind of do your own thing and make your own decisions, or you cry about it, and crying about it's not going to do anything, So I think it's a discussion point, but I think at this point it's a lot more of a clickbait deal. I will critique people, that are tournament fishing and not doing it right. I'm a little probably maybe too loudly outspoken about that, but I think there's always room for us to improve our game and the way we treat these fish. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, it like the way you started it out, it does depend on the lake, because there's some lakes. I think the Lake of the Ozarks. I mean, it's got 70,000 docks, but it has tournaments all the time. It does get a little bit of rest in the summertime because the pleasure boat traffic is just insane, and you can't. I mean, they have some night tournaments and stuff, but a lake like that has all these places for the fish to hide, they're going to survive, and it continues to put out huge numbers of fish. Yeah. So it's a destination lake, and I think it always will be. But there's some of these smaller lakes that have this constant tournament pressure. There's a local lake around here, and it seems like it's gotten a lot worse in the last 5 years. The tournaments have really kicked up, and it's hard to tell. Is it the tournaments, or is it like natural cycles that the lakes go into, or the fish are getting smarter too? It's like they're getting hammered all the time. Like those fish that used to sit out like pre-forward facing sonar, there used to be like this area where they could kind of get out there and rest a little bit, especially in the winter. Get out there, and nobody was messing with them really. Well, now they're getting hammered all the time, so they're smarter maybe. So it's just a combination of all that stuff. But they're
definitely smarter, or either you could call it smarter or more tentative. Like, so the other day I was out on Guntersville, and we were talking about it before we went on air. Like, they're in these places that like I think are pretty like obvious, and so it almost becomes more about how you catch them. Because I could throw one bait out there, like I'd throw a Kitech out, for instance, and I'd reel it, and I'd have 4 of them follow it, and they're bass, dude. Like some of them were big, some of them weren't, but they're following it. They won't eat it. I would have never known that without forward-facing sonar, but like they're there. They in tons of them, but then like you got to kind of figure out how to trigger them to catch them. But then at the same time, every time you trigger them to catch them, like, is that one less fish that you can catch next year? So you start wondering, like, every time you catch them, they get smarter and they get more tentative about stuff. But that is the game too, though. Everybody freaked out, like when the A-Rig came out, and everybody freaked out like with side scan when guys started, because I see a lot of like similarities between the complaints about forward facing now, and then some of the same like complaints like I had or other people had when side scan was so expensive. You would need like a freaking, at that time that was expensive, but like a $1,200, $2,000 unit to do the side scan deal. And these guys could find these massive schools of fish with side scan. And it was an accessibility question. It was I have this, I can do this question, So there was a gateway to it. And it has a lot of the same feeling as this forward-facing deal, where a lot of the guys were bitching are the ones who don't have it. And no doubt it's an expensive freaking deal, you know, but it's a gateway thing. If you don't have it, you can't go catch those fish because you can't see what they're doing in that. It's the same thing with that side scan deal. Like you wouldn't know there was a massive school of 40 fish next to you laying in a straight line if you didn't have that side scan. So, and I think it's all, fish are going to get harder and harder to catch. That's why management is going to get so important. And that is why I think too, some of these tournament questions are coming up, because I think guys are kind of seeing the writing on the wall where the amount of pressure at a single instance is affecting these fisheries. And they're seeing that it's not totally sustainable. It's going to keep happening, but there might need to be different approaches to it. Like, for example, the MLF thing, like catch, drop them back in the water. I think that makes a huge difference. Like, we're shuffling around fish populations and breaking up fish populations, especially the bigger ones. And yes, you get like tournament mortality, some of them are dying, but then you're also like moving these fish populations around and breaking them up, which is obviously making them more skittish and screwing things up a bit. So some of the like little simple things like catch them and put them back, I think that could change a lot of this stuff, like keeping those fish together where they want to be and where they originally were in the first place. I think that's kind of important.
Yeah, I think almost any tournament that has over, I don't know, you can't even really put a limit. I was going to say like 60 boats or something. They should have some sort of a live release boat or something that would, you know, haul them out to a certain point.
Do that, though. But like, everybody thinks everybody else is a cheater, and they're not totally wrong either, you know. So it's a mess, dude.
Yeah, there's going to be people out there watching to see where. Well, they have like the live release boats in Anglers in Action is a tournament trail down at Lake of the Ozarks, and I guess MLF would have the same type of live release boat, like a pontoon, and it's got a little floorboard in it, so they're just slowly dropping fish as they're idling out to a certain point, and then they turn around and come back. But they still only go a half a mile or a mile away from the marina, so those fish
are still brought to the marina too.
Yeah,
I mean, some of these guys are running 15. Like, I think that last derby I fished in the summer, like I caught most of my fish like 12 or 13 miles away from where we weighed in, which is a freaking haul, you know? I mean, it's not the longest run in the world, but it's a ways. Fred brings up an interesting point, because I get conflicted with this too, that like, should there be an off limits period? So I grew up in Wisconsin, and they had basically like the season wouldn't open until May 20th or something. And the goal with that was to protect fish during the spawn. And what ended up happening is, well, so from a personal standpoint, I thought that was stupid. I want to go fishing, catch fish, and let them go. And even if I'm catching them off the bed, I'm still going to let them go. And in my opinion, they still spawn, dude. You can catch them off the bed, and they still freaking, like, unless 30 guys freaking catch them, which they don't do usually. But the thing is, though, they removed that law I think this past year, the year before. And then two, with the way the climate, I don't want to say like climate change, but with the different seasonal kind of like swings we get, well, half the time May was freaking pre-spawn, dude, and those fish won't spawn until the end of May, early June, and you're still picking them off the beds, you know? So like every good deed goes freaking punished, you know? So like they meant well, and the concept was halfway sound, but it just didn't work. It's not realistic. And I'm never a fan of restricting things leads to a better outcome. Like, I'm very, I guess, libertarian mindset, if you will, and you're never going to restrict things enough to make them right. Like, things move forward, things grow, things evolve. Like, that's people things, that's fish things, that's like cultural things, that's the way we fish. Like, you can never restrict something. Like the A-rig, I think, was one of the biggest mistakes like tournament fishing made. It would have been a 1 to 2 year like big deal, and then it would have went away, because it doesn't work all the time. So like the way you restrict things doesn't actually solve the problem. It just delays it or puts a Band-Aid on it, and you're not really addressing what's going on. So I don't think that's quite the solution. And I worry about, because every time we talk about restriction, like the top end of that is laws. And in the end, the laws come around and they bite people in the ass, and they bite the people in the ass that want things to be better, but also want to partake and enjoy in the sport. So the changing laws and putting further restrictions on, it's probably not going to hurt tournament fishing. It's probably not going to help the lakes too much. It's going to hurt the people that support this and the dollars that go into it, because it's going to restrict that behavior, you know? So for every action, there's a consequence. So that's my concern when you talk about legislating in like various protections, or like, you know, decreasing pressure via legislation. It's just, I don't think the outcome is always what you really like foresee it to be, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that a buddy of mine used to go to Alaska to fish for salmon, and the way that it worked up there was they had, I don't know if it was infrared sensors or something on these rivers, and after, let's say, 1 million salmon swam past this certain location, and it guaranteed that they would have enough fish to have a successful spawn and to keep that stock going into the future, then they would open up for fishing, and the boats would have so many pounds of fish that they could catch. And after that quota was filled, then they would shut it off. A lot of times it only lasted 48 hours. So he would go balls to the wall for nonstop for 48 hours to get as much as he could. But that guaranteed that the salmon would successfully reproduce, and we'd have this resource forever. You know, talking about Minnesota, in Wisconsin and stuff, and the smallmouth season being closed until May or whenever it is, you'd almost have to do something like that, where you'd have to have somebody going out and observing the conditions and seeing what stages the fish were in, and then opening the season. But you can't do that because people plan trips and stuff. And then, like you said, the local economy.
Well, you don't want somebody to have that much power.
Yeah, that's too much. That's
like,
too much.
That's a lot of power. Like, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Like, it's
right.
I don't know. It's one of those things, man. Like,
yeah, I'm not for that. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I'd almost say it'd have to be almost that extreme because of how things are shifting. You know, the sea, like we were just talking about.
People forget too. Like, there's negatives and there's positives to every situation, right? So yeah, tournament fishing, I think we can all agree in a very general, non-argumentative way that it affects fishing, and probably from a negative standpoint. You know, to the extent of that negativity, we can dispute that all day. But the other end of that is all these guys coming into communities, paying for hotels, paying for fishing licenses, buying baits. Like, it's an industry, you know, it's an industry on the private end from a bait and consumption standpoint, but it's also an industry where those dollars end up translating into, you know, tax dollars, you know, and what do you call it? Environmental reconstruction, you know, things along those lines. And I think that's where you don't want to lose those dollars, because they do good things. Maybe not all of them, but some of them do. And I don't even know if like a stocking program would help in that, because we're still looking at, you know, these fish need a period to grow, and that, I don't know. The other thing too, man, and I'll be the first to admit it, like, YouTube is drama trauma, right? So like, the more drama and trauma you have, the more views, impressions, clicks. And that's what your end game is a lot of times on YouTube. I'm sort of, I don't want to say like I'm above the rift. Like, I try to dimensionalize it. I love to fish. I want to show fishing. I want to highlight it. I want to get views. You know, I want to try to make some money and stuff like that. But I think a lot of this is people recognize the content clickability of this conversation. And that's why you're seeing a big emphasis on it too. There's a lot of SEO, search engine optimization, and like click-driven search scenarios that are behind this as well. So like, there's more to this conversation, or the reason this conversation, it's like I talk about with anything. There's more to the story than just like reading the topical headline, you know? So like, I think, yes, there's some issues and there's some things that need to be addressed, but like, it's also, there's a lot of bullshit here, dude. Like, there's a lot of freaking guys yapping because people will listen, you know?
Yeah. Stephanie's kind of comment is, it kind of piggybacks off of what you said about the way Major League Fishing, the catch, weigh, and release. That's probably the best way as far as conservation. And we've had a couple guys from the NPFL on here, and they have probably, in my opinion, maybe the second best way, which is they have a drive-through weigh-in where the boat pulls up right on the stage and the fish are still in the live well, and they just grab them out of the live well, weigh them, and then they're off. So that versus like what Stephanie is saying, where like a club weigh-in where you got a bag of water and you put your fish in there and you're standing there for 5 minutes and there's only 2 minutes of oxygen in the bag and the fish are just like,
yeah,
you know, so that's,
and they're stressed already, you know.
Yeah, that's pretty rough on them. So I mean, you know, without, like you said, without making a bunch of stupid laws and stuff, it just like anything in life, it kind of comes down to personal responsibility, you know.
And that's, you know what, dude, that's what it is. And there's a lot less of that now, you know. So like it's, and there's new guys. Here's the other thing too. Like I'll be the first to admit I'm guilty of catching a fish off the bank and dragging it into the dirt, you know, when I was a kid, stuff like that, and like probably not taking the best care of the fish. Like I recognize that, and I try to really practice better protocols for catching the fish. And really, like, I'll catch a fish if it's like a 5-pounder and I want to shoot a little talking video and get the release, dude. I'll catch them, boat flip them, whatever, and I'll put them in the live well, dude, because I need like 2.5 minutes to get a camera on, to do all this stuff. And like a lot of that just relates to, you know, thinking, like just being common sense in that. And I think that's what lacks, and that's where the tournament mentality, and by no means am I saying all these guys are like this, because they make money off the sport, they make money off of fish, and they want the fish to live too. But I do think it catalyzes behaviors that maybe aren't as positive from a conservation standpoint. And that's a very kind of roundabout way of saying like they do shit they shouldn't do, you know. So like when it comes to the treatment of fish. And so I think that's kind of maybe part of the thing that comes into play with tournament fishing when that pressure's on. Maybe you're not, you know, going through your normal protocols, your normal process that you do to take care of the fish and get them released. And then there's just a knowledge-based thing. You know, I was talking about being a kid dragging the fish on the bank. There's a lot more, which is awesome. Like COVID, the Googans, like there's a lot more young guys into fishing, you know, but that means there's also a lot more of a learning gap. So like these guys need to be sort of coached and mentored into a position where, you know, this is a valuable resource. How much fun are you having? A ton of fun. In order to keep that fun flowing, here are the things that we need to do. It might take an extra 5 minutes. It might not be like the cool freaking dangle hold kind of thing, but these are the behaviors that lead to us being able to do this over and over and over again. And I think that's what lacks a lot of times is just whether it's the teaching end or whether, you know, maybe it's the young, not even young, but inexperienced end, not wanting to practice or not knowing those. I don't know, chicken or the egg, right? But that plays into it a lot. And especially, so here's the deal too. Like we talk about OHIV, I talk about these trophy lakes that I fish in Florida. Like it does make a bigger difference when you're talking about bigger fish. You need to manage resources that like have these magnums in a more diligent way. And the fact with this forward facing sonar, and we're good, like we're so much better. Like us average guys are so much better at fishing than some of the guys like freaking 30 years ago. We know so much more, dude, to catch them. So you start being able to catch some of those giants that they didn't even know were there years ago. And all of a sudden we're tapping into them, and these fish take so much longer to grow to that size. They're the ones we want to fish for, but they're getting caught a lot more. So like that management aspect becomes all the more important because we're actually tapping into like the alpha females, I guess it would be, of that population, you know? So there's a lot of edges to this sword, dude. It's not just, there isn't just a, you know, ban fishing for 2 months a year that fixes it. Like there's some cultural issues, there's some tournament issues, there's some individual responsibility angler issues. There's a lot of concepts that go into it. I think a lot of it's just having like a philosophy where I love this, I want to keep it going. What do I do from a common sense standpoint at the very ground grassroots level to make sure that happens? Because I'm not a top down guy. Like shit doesn't get done because somebody tells you to do something from the top down. It always comes from the bottom up. And in a situation like this, I think that's really the only way is when people take personal responsibility. They love it as much as we all love it. And they really want to nurture and keep things going. Doesn't mean people aren't going to make mistakes. Doesn't mean there's not going to be dead fish. It happens. But really, if you take personal responsibility and really are invested in this sport and wanting it to continue and grow, there's certain steps you're going to take to be more diligent about fish care, about fish release, about tournament fishing, all of that.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's good stuff. Well said. Let's like split this. This is something I wanted to ask you. How'd you come up with the name Mikey Balzz?
I thought I told you guys about this. It's really stupid. It's terribly stupid. So back in the day, dude, like when I was in high school, I hung out with a bunch of kids. We were all degenerates and whatever. And we were sitting in some off hour one day and we're like, hey, bro, we should start a rap band clique thing. And I'm like, hell yeah, you know, like none of us have musical talent, but let's get after it, you know? And so, of course, you know, being very freaking, you know, like outcome oriented and smart about things, our first goal, obviously you need a name for each person in the band versus creating content, creating music. Like that's secondary, dude. But coming up with a name is hugely important. So we all came up with names for our rap names, and mine was Mikey Balzz. And so, you know, fast forward many years, dude, the internet arrives, you know, like that AOL address that you gave me and all that. And I'm trying to get like an email on Hotmail and I'm like, Mike. And it's like, yeah, you're Mike 78. And it's like, hell no, dude, I'm not Mike 78. Like, that's stupid. So I'm like tapping in names. I'm like, Mikey Balzz. So I type it in and it's like, ta-da, here you go. I'm like, okay, let me try this again. So I go on like freaking Gmail, dude. I'm like, Mikey Balzz. I'm like, ta-da, here you go. So basically I just went across the board and just created like user platforms, user logins, you know, for Mikey Balzz. And I get that name anywhere I go, dude, even to this day. So don't take it from me. All right.
Yeah. No, you never told that. I wondered that. And
yeah, it's just one of the internet's funny how it makes you evolve and adapt in weird ways, dude.
So that's your hip hop name. I didn't know that. So
yeah, and there was never a song or any kind of beat that came out of that little creation. So
well, you got to have a crew, man, to roll with, and
they were good kids, dude. We got into a lot of trouble. Had a good time.
Yeah, Sean's right. It's about being ethical, even if no one is watching. I love fishing, and when I release a fish, you know, how many times have you? This pisses me off. How many times have you got your lure hung up on something? You know, it wasn't a stump. You know, it wasn't a rock because it just got a little spongy, and you pull up like a whole wad of fishing line.
Yeah.
Who does that?
River is renowned for that. Like a whole spool. Dude, the catfishing guys are terrible.
Somebody threw it in the lake. You didn't just. I mean,
well, on the river, dude, there's a lot of that stuff that's on the bottom. Like those catfish guys will hang the bottom or something, and they'll like despool. It just happens. But yeah, there's.
I'm talking about in a lake, though. I'm talking about in a lake that doesn't have current, and it's just.
There is a lot of that. That's why, dude. My favorite part about my nitro, and I shit you not, dude. In the cooler, when you lift it up, it's got a giant cooler on it. Right next to it is a little plastic garbage can.
Oh yeah, I fish out of a Z20 a lot. My buddy Mike.
It is the best feature to ever watch because now, like, there's no more. I'll still have a few baits at the bottom of the boat, but like, I retie like a leader knot and I clip like 2 5-inch sections of fluorocarbon. It's like, dude, it's easy. You just, you know, it's in, and I don't know. And that, see, now that's a great example. Like, we need solutions that are that stupid. And that's all it takes, because I don't expect anyone to like go out of their way to be crazy. Like, it's common sense things. And that's why a lot of these like weird internet, like Uber, dude, who would ever thought like Uber would work? Like somebody, it's like rideshare, you know, but those are the kind of like common sense, simple, like adaptation. Like, you'd never think about it because it's so straightforward and easy. And those are the kinds of solutions we need in fishing. And we're always, I don't know if it's because fishing is a little more of an old guy's deal or what, but fishing is always a little slower on the uptake with stuff like that. But that's the kind of thinking and that we need to sort of get through this little conflict, whatever you want to call it, thing that we're having is some simple, anybody can do solutions that are easy to implement. They don't take any skin off your back. And it will make a world of difference because a lot of people will adopt them. You know, it's more about like the volume and having a mass like adoption versus trying to change the world and force people to do something that they're not going to freaking do.
Yeah, Stephanie, there was somebody I was listening to. I can't remember what podcast it was, but there's somebody that has basically the concept is throw something away every day, like pick up one piece of trash and throw it away. You know, it's super simple. It doesn't require a lot of energy. We all see just random gum wrappers or something laying around. Pick it up, put it in your pocket, throw it in the trash. You should do the same thing on the lake. If you see, like, if I snag a piece of wood that's got fishing line all around it, I'm throwing it in the boat. I'm not throwing it back
in the garbage can, dude.
Yeah. It can ride in the boat until you get back on land, and then you just dispose of it properly. Don't throw it.
I'm always one of those guys too, like fear of karma. So a little funny note. I actually stopped dipping freaking 3 weeks ago, and I can't believe I'm still not doing. I still got my little
congratulations
things and all that, but
big deal.
Yeah, dude. So because I was like degenerate. But so I'd be fishing or something, and then you get up and go on plane, and I'm like about to get on plane, and I hear kapook, and there it is looking at like a dip can. And it's one of mine. So like I always live in fear of karma. And I'm like, bro, if you don't turn around and pick that up, you're never catching a fish over 5 today. So like gun around, pick it up, like just hashtag do the right thing. It sounds so stupid and so like lame hipster woke, but like just pick it up, dude. Like it's that easy. Like take 2 seconds to go pick it up.
Yeah, no, man, that don't sound woo to me. That's just common sense, dude. I mean, we should all be doing that. We should all be.
I mean, it's simple stuff, but we do spend a lot of time out there. So like it is our environment. So the larger onus does fall on us, like for the guys who love it the most, it means you take on the most responsibility. And that's probably why we're having this conversation, because we're engaged in it, we're involved and we want it to be better. So that greatest weight, I mean, it's all partitioned based upon what you take away from something is the most that you give to it, So like a lot of that weight falls onto us, dude. Like the youngins, the people with not much experience, they screw up. Like a lot of it's just because of, ignorance, lack of knowing, whatever, lack of practice. But in the end, it like we're the ones that drive change, because that's what I was even talking about. Put up this video on the pros thing. You saw that Jacob Fouts video, right?
Yeah.
So like when he didn't really experience, like back in 2010, dude, it was the exact opposite of what it is now. It was a gentleman's club, closed doors. Unless you were tournament fishing, you had no voice, you had nothing. And like that's evolved. And at that point though, until that change occurred,
Bogster?
What's that?
Is that the Bogster?
Yeah, dude, he's killing somebody at the door. So I don't know what's happening. I should probably go get my gun, because
I hope it's not the mailman. As long as it's not the mailman, we're all right.
Yeah. Actually, I can check my ring thing and see who else out there.
Yeah, high tech.
Hold on for a second. I might need to go. Oh shit.
Tackle warehouse order. Do what you gotta do. Yeah, all good, bro. Ooh, got a little drama. No, I was kind of wanting to get Mikey's opinion on this, but I was listening to the Mercer podcast today. If you haven't listened to that, check it out. There's Randy Blockett was on there. It's a really good interview, because they go back and forth, but it's cordial, professional, and they debate the typical stuff like the forward-facing sonar. Everybody knows his stance on that, but he really believes what he's saying, and you have to respect someone that is not afraid to give their opinion on it. But he was also talking about, he's strong on environmental issues too. And he was talking about how when he does a video on something about the environment, he loses a lot of subs. And so Mercer asked him, how did you become such a strong environmentalist? And he said one time he was fishing in this creek, and it was this little creek that he had picked up a lot of the trash. Every time he went down there, he'd pick up trash and kind of clean it up. And he said there was some redneck drove across the bridge and threw a full-size trash bag down to the creek, and all this trash just blew up. And he was, obviously when you're 10, 11, 12 years old and you see something like that, all of a sudden, this nice pristine place becomes trashed, it's going to irk you off. So he said since that day, he kind of became somewhat of an environmentalist. So that's kind of the story behind that, which we can all understand that. But yeah, it's just about it's no different than like opening the door for somebody. It doesn't take that much effort. Just picking up after yourself. Don't bite the head off your plastics or throw your plastics in the lake. I've seen that, like a big old swell up piece of plastic floating around, and so, some things happen. Like a fish will pull that worm off the hook or whatever, but don't just throw your crap in the lake. We are going to be doing a giveaway here in a little bit. Baitworks, we're going to be doing a $25 gift card here shortly. And go check out Baitworks if you haven't been over there. They're offering a lot of good stuff on the way. They got a lot of deals going on right now, just like a lot of other places. But go check out Baitworks. Code THM10 will get you 10% off. Let's see. I'm gonna go back up here and check. Yeah, bog is going off. That's right. I will. I would not want bog. I got a pit bull on my route actually, and I think it's friendly. I'm a letter carrier for people on here that don't know. And there's a pit bull on my route, and this place gets parcels a lot. But I'm scared to go up there and make friends with that pit bull because we're taught as letter carriers not to approach a dog that we are not aware of the temperament, and it barks sometimes, but I think it's a good dog. But it's something about a pit bull. It's just, they're just intimidating. Although some of the sweetest dogs that I've ever been around have been pit bulls. So it's kind of like a book. You can't judge a book by its cover. But Bog always, every time I see that dog on my route, it reminds me of Bog. Yeah, Mercer has a lot of really good stuff. I'm typically listening to him whenever his shows come out. And of course, you got to supplement with BTL. There's a bunch of good stuff out there. I don't know, Will. I don't know. I watched that too, and it was good. I don't know. Milliken went hard, man. I mean, Milliken went hard. I kind of understand why. He called Randy out on a lot of stuff, and he had a lot of stats, and he did a little bit of research. But it kind of left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. I don't know. I just think that there's ways to go about it. The thing I liked about the Mercer Blockett podcast was he challenged Blockett on a lot of his points and a lot of his beliefs, but it was cordial. It wasn't so cutthroat. And I mean, maybe that's the way to go is like what Milliken did, is just really chop somebody down. But I don't like to see that. I mean, I think you should respect whoever you're arguing with, but there's some blood there. There really is some blood there. Yeah, there's definitely, I don't know the whole scoop, but there's some of that's going on. I know they closed the one in Lake of the Ozarks or in Osage Beach a while back. It's a tough market right now. Interest rates are going up. It's hard to finance anything. Boats are freaking $90,000, and it's I don't know, man. It's not a good time to try to finance things. Even though really, historically, 7% is not really that high. We just have gotten so used to 3% that 7% seems high. And it is higher than 3%, obviously, but there's been times where it's been 10, 11, 12%. And that would, I mean, that's really going to shut down the economy if it ever gets that bad, which I don't know. It seems like it's getting under control. Yeah, Baitworks is still up and running, man. They're running strong in Springfield, Missouri. And it's a really cool place. I've been in there a couple times. That place is stocked really well. Super fast shipping. Like I said, THM10, you get 10% off your first order. Go check them out. Let's see here. John, I'd like to see a hybrid of some of that stuff. Like he says, I guess the best process for tournaments would be to catch and immediately release. Just don't know how you would police it. I'd like to see, I mean, Bassmasters used to do that. I think it's called the TTBC. It's where they went to Fork, and Fork's got that weird slot limit. So they did a catch, weigh, and release. I like that. It's cool to see a little bit, the 5 fish, bring them across the stage, but also some catch, weigh, and release. And I mentioned this before. Back in the day, they used to have like the Mega Bucks tournament where the top 10, basically day 4, the top 10 fished like a hole. You had a little hole, and each person fished a hole for an hour and a half, and then they rotated. I think that'd be cool to see some kind of tournament like that. There's a lot of that stuff from back in the day that was good ideals that just kind of went by the wayside. I'm tired of it all too, Will. It's just, you know, it comes to the point, it's like, what's fishing about? Why do we all do it? You know, somebody left a comment on my channel recently, and they were talking about how most of the people that fish off of the bank, and most of the people that fish can't afford high dollar equipment. A lot of them can't afford boats and things of that nature. And that's true. That's like, we all started out on the bank, and it got me thinking a little bit. I still fish off the bank. Like, I got a farm pond out here at my father-in-law's house. I go out there and fish multiple times a year. Where I used to live, I had a lake in the backyard, and, you know, I fished off the lake in the backyard a lot of times. I never really, I mean, I've done some video, did some content doing that, but a lot of times that's just me getting away from all of it, not having any kind of cameras or anything, just kind of meditative, just get out there and relax and fish. But most people are fishing off of the bank, and that's what it was all about. It's still about that. It's still about going out and fishing. It doesn't have to be about freaking tournaments. It doesn't have to be about $80,000 bass boats. I think one of the best things that's happened in the last however long is kayaks. How kayaks have become really popular, because, you know, you can buy like a $300 kayak. I was at Walmart the other day, and they were clearancing all that stuff out because it's off season now. But there was like kayaks for $198, and that's $200 is still some money. And then there was like some sit on top decent ones. I mean, you still have to have an oar. It's not like a, you know, pedal drive or anything. But for like $300, you can buy something that you can throw in the back of your truck or strap down on top of your car. And these places that you have permission to bank fish, you can drag that. You can build like a pretty cheap transportation system with just some wheels and just kind of a crude little wood with plywood, so you can drag that kayak around. But you can go from like the bank and standing on the bank and looking at all these laydowns and trees and stuff that you can't fish on the outside of, and you can't even really fish anywhere along that section of the bank. A lot of times that's what frustrating about bank fishing is. You got like this little area that you can squeeze out, and you can make like 4 or 5 casts, and then you got to go down another 30-40 feet. You can poke your head out and fish. So you're like, man, I wish I had a boat. Well, with a kayak for a couple $100 maybe, you can drag that kayak down and you can fish all that stuff from the outside, and you have access to like a whole plethora of stuff. So that's what's been cool about the whole kayak scene, is it's really opened up a lot of people's eyes, and they've been able to, you know, to explore a little more. And there's a lot of really cool places that you can't get a big boat in, or even a john boat. Like, there's some strip pit lakes up in, I live in Cape Girardeau, but up in, it's about an hour and a half away from us in Illinois. There's a place called Pyramid State Parks, and it's like 50. If you guys are in that area and you haven't heard of Pyramid State Park, check it out or Google it. If it's close enough to you, definitely go check it. Although right now a lot of that's closed because of waterfowl season. They have migratory bird season. They shut that stuff off. But there's like 50 lakes there, and there's strip pits. There's probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them that have concrete boat ramps, right? But there's a lot of them that are like 1 acre ponds, maybe 2 acre ponds, and there's no boat ramp, but you can drag kayak in there, and the fishing, it's got to be stupid because they're stocked and they're not getting the pressure like the other ones are. But that's kind of stuff that brings us back to our roots. You know, we're getting away from all the tournament stuff. And yeah, Rich, I agree, man. He was a smart ass. He was being can I say penis wrinkle? Yeah, it is. That's what he was being. But I kind of understand. He was being very cocky, in my opinion. Like, he knew the situation he was in. He knew the temperament of Randy. He knew the crowd. He played the room. I think he leveraged things and he made his points, but he was just a little bit abrasive, in my opinion. But I don't know. To each his own. He got his point across. I mean, I commend Randy for, like, he steps into the arena, man. He has his opinions on things. He's vocal about them. A lot of it is clickbait for sure. He keeps this he keeps this going, but he believes in what he's saying. I firmly believe that. I mean, there's some ways he leverages his channel to keep it going. And that's part of it. You know, it's a business. He's making a lot of his money now, not off of tournaments, not off of professional fishing, but off of his YouTube channel. So you gotta, when he was on here, he was on the stream it's probably been 6 months ago. And he said that there is an element of, you know, clickbait thumbnail that people have to do to draw traffic to their channel. And that's true, because Rich, you know that as well as I do. And Mikey, you'll know this too when he comes back out here. I hope nobody died. Jesus. He hasn't even texted me or anything, but there's an element of that where if you just put the title on a video, this was a good fall day for frog fishing. Well, you know, that's very accurate. That's what happened in this video. So if you click on that video, you know that that's what's going to happen, but it's not going to draw people in, you know, so you got to be a little bit more creative with that title. And that's what Blockit does. You know, he reads the room and he titles and thumbnails accordingly, but he's managed to keep this forward facing sonar stuff going and going. But if you listen to what he's saying, I agree with some of what he's saying. I think there's also there's an element of it's a technology that's changing, and you can relate this to anything. You know, everything changes. Everything is moving forward, and there's always going to be people that are stuck on 70s classic rock music. They never, you know, everything past the 70s suck. They don't make them like they used to. You know, remember when music was good? There's, you know, I listen to a lot of 2000 stuff. It's really good stuff, but I play music, so I'm continually moving forward. But you can take that concept and apply it to anything in life, and there's going to be people that stay and they don't move forward. Okay, so you can say that about Blockit's position on forward-facing sonar, right? But his heart, in my opinion, his heart is in it for the environmental stuff, like the effects that it has on the fisheries, and he backs it up. So he steps into the arena. So I give him props for that. Like back to the Milliken thing, he steps in there, man. I mean, he goes into the cage. I mean, he knew he was walking into a cage. He didn't bail out. He didn't try to get out of it or whatever. And he's able to answer the hard questions. So I commend him for that. It's hard to do. I mean, it's hard to do. It's hard to have a strong opinion and just get beat up. He's able to shake off the comments and just take them with a grain of salt. You know, I don't follow any of his stuff anymore because it's, as a content creator, sometimes I don't know. I kind of see the business side of what he's doing, and it you know, it makes me gag. So sometimes, but I also understand what he's doing. But he has a lot of good stuff. I mean, he's a good teacher, and anyway, it is what it is. But I do commend him from getting into the cage. When's my next tournament? I might be fishing Saturday, bro. There's a little club or a little jackpot tournament, little fruit jar tournament that's going on Saturday at Cedar. And I might be getting the band back together. I got a hold of Jerry. I haven't fished with Jerry in like a year and a half. Life's been busy and we kind of grew apart a little bit, but I met him again. I ran into him at the local Mexican restaurant up the street, and he sat down with me and my wife, and we had a really good conversation. He's my boy. He's always been my boy. There's no hard feelings or anything. We've just been doing different things. But I found out about this little tournament Saturday. Little John boat tournament, $60, like 7-3. So I'm thinking about jumping into that, but it's supposed to rain. It's supposed to be like, it's one of them deals where it's going to be like an all day soaker. The air temps are going to be like mid 50s. So that won't be that big a deal. I mean, if it was like 38, 39, I might change my mind. So I don't know if, I'm going to be able to do some footage. I might put the GoPro up on the stand and just put that YOLO Tech silicone putty stuff on there. Yeah, Sean, I don't know where he's at. I hear some noise. I think he's about to come back. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't agree. Okay, here's a good topic. And I wanted to get into this with Mikey, but Ben seemed to be upset with Randy when Randy said that he couldn't win without forward-facing sonar. On Mercer, Randy said that he doesn't believe that any of the 9, the 9 guys that qualified from the Bassmaster Open EQs, they qualified for the elites next year. He thinks that of those 9, 0 of them would have qualified without forward-facing sonar. There's a field of over 200 people. So he could have a point on some of the folks, but I know Trey McKinney. I don't know him, like he's not on my board, like my buddy or anything, but I know the lakes that he fishes, and I'm familiar with his tournament success in this area because he lives like an hour away from me. So we fish a lot of the same lakes. He's fished a lot of the same tournaments that I've fished, and I'm able to track him because he's local, and he's been very successful around here. Even without forward-facing sonar, he's a good fisherman. And the reason why, and this is the reason why I think Randy was wrong on stating that without forward-facing sonar, none of the 9 guys would have made it to the elites. Those guys are all hard workers. And that is, to me, that trumps the forward-facing sonar, or it's just part of being efficient and being successful with forward-facing sonar, because everybody's got it and everybody's not winning. So it's not just the technology. Yeah, you're able to see a lot of stuff with that technology, but just because you have it doesn't mean you're going to qualify for the Bassmaster Elites, the Open EQs. It's a lot more than that. It's discipline. It's being on the water 5 or 6 days a week. Every time I've been to Egypt, I've seen Trey over there. Just about every time. I don't want to say every time. That's a little bit too bold of a statement. But many, many times that I'm over there, I see Trey on Egypt. He's on the water 5 or 6 days a week. So he's out there studying. He's out there learning. He's out there, experimenting, learning his craft. He's putting in the time. He's putting in the time and the hard work and the effort. That's why these guys are so good. So you can have a technology, but there's a learning curve with that technology. And the more time you put in, the more situations you put yourself in and learn how to use that technology, the better you're going to be. So that's why I think some of these guys excel, even though everybody's got the forward-facing sonar. There's still certain people that excel in it. And I think that many of those guys would have qualified for the elites because of that discipline and because of that time on the water and because of some of them are just naturals. There's other variables. Part of it is it's definitely the age. I think the average age of 7 of them was 23 years old. And, you add Milliken in there and John Garrett, and I think it bumped it up to 27 or 28, which is still really, really young. But when you're 20, 22, 23, 24, you don't have, dude.
How hard are you going to kill me, dude?
No, it was great, man. I covered for you, man. I'm just curious what happened. We were really worried about you. We were going to call 911.
I don't want to get too deep into it. I love my neighbors, and their son's kind of maybe going through some tough stuff at the moment. Okay. And he comes by every once in a while. And I love fishing, and fishing is really important. But just on my gradient scale of things, people are more important. So it was important to kind of chat with him and get through some stuff.
Are you good to
yeah, well, let's kind of move towards a wrap up maybe in like 15-20 minutes, but I told him I need to finish this up, and then if he wants to chat some more, we can come back together in like 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, cool, man. Excellent. So let's get away from this crap. We've just been talking about, I was just talking about Blockett and how he's
Did you see the debate?
Huh?
Did you see the debate?
Yeah, that somebody brought that up.
Bro, I didn't watch the debate, but I saw the highlights. I can't believe they got those guys to go on the same show and do that. I know Blockett's smart, dude. I give him all the credit. He knows how to like clickbait and like he's good at that stuff. And he knew it'd be a great what do you call it? Like a dynamic to like draw in viewers and engage and like get people to kind of like shoot their mouths. Like he's smart, dude. He knows that stuff. And man, like it was the highlight reel was not disappointing at all. They were just firing back, and then Milliken's like freaking out. He's just like, "Oh my god, are you kidding me?" Oh, it was hilarious, dude.
Yeah, Milliken went hard though. I mean, he chewed on him pretty hard. I thought, I was kind of like,
I don't think Randy cares though, dude.
No, he doesn't. That's what I'm saying. He steps right in the octagon and he goes toe to toe, and he doesn't care. And he doesn't get riled up. You can't
win against someone like that, dude.
No.
Like
he knows what his talking points are. He's got it down, and he's calm. You know, he
was. I didn't notice that. Milliken freaking got on edge, and like he started like, and he's a smart guy. Like he thinks at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and Randy's just kind of like,
yeah.
Like he should have had a little smoking pipe or something, you know? Like it was amusing, man.
Yeah,
it was cool though. Those like that's fun. That's like Maury for fishing, you know? Like I don't know, that's kind of fun. If we're gonna do this whole like, you know, like yeah kind of thing, we might as well do it that way because at least it's entertaining, you know.
Yeah, it was it needed to be done. It was good stuff. I think they had some. I mean, I know Milliken had some pent up stuff that he wanted to get out of his system. So it did remind me of a 62-year-old guy just sitting back watching a 20-something-year-old guy or 30. I think Milliken's in his 30s or whatever. But you know, it was pretty cool. It was good.
It was kind of the illustration though of this whole forward facing thing. Like and people are going to tag me on this. It's as much an age problem as a technology problem though. Because a lot of these guys just won't adopt. And I can actually relate to that. Like there's some things I don't want to do, like when it comes to like forward facing and like having to catch them, but you have to, because that, like, if you want to catch them, that's what you have to do. But it's the same thing with the technology. Like, I don't want to fish that way. Well, that's fine. When I go catch 25 pounds and you come back to the ramp with like 8 and you just squeeze them together, like you got to either like get on the bus, dude, or you watch the bus drive by you. And I'm not saying it's going to work that way all the time, but there is something to it, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of shenanigans going on in tournament fishing. People paying for waypoints and information, and you know,
I want to get on that train, make some dollars. Like, I do all this work all the time, and I highly enjoy it. But I'm like, that's like quick, easy cash, dude. Wow.
Yeah, Rich said they didn't tell anybody ahead of time who was on the panel. I find that hard to believe though, because Milliken had done a lot of research, and he pulled up back in '87. You said such and such in this video. Now, how do you reply to that? I'm like, nah, that wasn't organic, dude.
And dude, like I'll get on just about anything, but I always ask questions though, because you know, there's a ton of nice people. You're super chill. There's a ton of nice guys I've been on podcasts with, but there's always like one person who's got it in for you, you know. So you always got to be a little bit careful with that, dude.
So what do you got going? I saw a video where you're talking about you were possibly thinking about dipping your toes into the Toyotas. Is that still a possibility, or have you thought about it?
I'm so conflicted.
Yeah.
So I live 1 hour from Smith Lake. I live 1 hour from Guntersville, and I live about 2.5 hours from Chickamauga. And that is the schedule for the Toyota Series, I think, Central. And I love, like, so Guntersville is like February 15th. I'm not super good out there that time of year, but I love throwing a trap. And odds are, I'm not saying you could win the derb, but like you could catch them on a trap, and like you just, you know, you fish different during a tournament. I'll be the first to admit it. You know, like that competition kicks in, you scramble, like you just do things different. So it's kind of cool. And Smith Lake is in like April. And dude, either you're going to have like this forward facing bonanza going on, or you're going to have like spotted bass on beds where you can't see them, and you flick a net out there and you go like that for like 30 seconds, and like a 3-pounder comes over and eats it. It's fun. Or you throw a glide bait. It's cool fishing. Like, it's cool times of the year to be on these. Like, granted, it might be a weather situation or something. Chick, I'm not nearly as familiar with. I've only been there like once or twice, but it falls into that same general kind of platform, and I think that one's in April. So basically there's a very low overhead. I think about it logistically. There's a low overhead cost for travel and staying, because I can stay in my house for 2 of them. I got buddies over in Chickamauga. I can go crash at their house. It would be an awesome opportunity for content too. So like way back in the day, before YouTube was cool and like before circuit breakers showed up, I didn't have any money, so I couldn't execute, but I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if you shot like a vlog video about tournament fishing, and it was like 50% tournament fishing and 50% like what happens in the background? And like, you know, fast forward to today, I should have put my money where my mouth is and shot the thing, because that's literally what everybody's doing. But it would be an interesting opportunity to drive content, because things happen, you know, in those situations, and they create their own narratives. I'm all about organic stuff, dude. I really let like going out on the water drive the direction of my content, and sometimes it fails miserably, right? But I think it'd be kind of an interesting dynamic to see, one, could you even hang with these guys? Two, like what little offshoots of crazy shit happens that you catch on video, you know, content wise, and, you know, what's the experience like? And with the lower overhead cost of travel, it'd be kind of neat. At the same time, it's a lot of freaking money, dude. Like when you do the basic math, let's say it's ballparked with entries like around $7,000. That's just ballparking. And the time thing, like one thing a lot of guys don't know about me is like I do this YouTube thing, and I'm trying to make it more of like a job thing that I do. But like I have like 6 or 7 contracts of marketing consulting stuff that I do aside from this that are actually where I make money and things. So is it that I have X amount of days to create content? Is there that much value in fishing a tournament and spending basically what would probably be like a total of a week and a half, 2 weeks between like pre-fishing and visiting the lake prior to, and then the tournament? Is there that much value in that? Or should I take that money and invest it in 2 epic fishing trips during the year and spend 2 weeks going someplace new? So like there's all these sort of value estimations. Like where is the value at? Where's the fun at too? Like I want this to be fun. I don't want this to be work. So I had a lot of conflict, if I'm being totally honest, dude.
I think, not that you want my opinion, but I think
I'm going to
give it to you anyway.
Opinions, dude, because I don't know what the hell to do.
I think it's a good opportunity for you to just try it. I know. Look, time and money and time, whatever. It is what it is. I understand that. Is it super expensive? I think you got the chops to contend. I think you can hang with them. And I think you'll put in your time. And as far as the content will be really, really cool, because tournaments are about the tournament. There's no technique that you're trying to go out and capture on video. It's just capturing the tournament. It is what it is.
That is
so
true.
It's one of the it takes a little more editing probably.
Yeah.
But it's one of the easier concepts to kind of put your video around, because it's straightforward. I
mean, it drives the narrative.
A tournament.
Like that's the storyline. MLF Toyota Series. Boom.
Right.
That's it. So.
And I think you're coming up on 100,000 subs, which
almost
that's going to be here before you know it. But
I don't know about
you're going to have all these people.
You see what they did to these videos recently, dude? I went from like having like 20,000 hits on a video to like, I think I got like 1,000 today in a day. The throttle is on, bro. The throttle
it's weird, man. I don't even, dude. That's like YouTube politics. That drives me bonkers. I mean, it's got to drive you even more because you know more about it than I do, for sure.
It's obnoxious, but
yeah. But I think you would have, as Milliken qualified for the elites and even fishing the opens, he pulled a lot of people into that. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to follow your journey because you got a big following. I think it's going to be cool to see. I mean, you're putting yourself out there,
right,
a little bit. You're putting yourself out there a little bit, but I think that, like I said, I think you know what's up. You're fairly familiar with some of those lakes, and I think you're going to put in time and do well. So, but it's a lot of money too. I know, man. It's a tough decision, and the time.
If I'm being honest, too, the other thing, for as much as like I have no principles and stuff, like I do have like some thoughts. And one aspect of this, I do critique some of the tournament fishing stuff, and by participating, I am supporting. You know, like you can't mince words with that. So there is a certain level of like there's an ethical question. Like I talk all this shit, like I say all these things, like put your money where your mouth is. If you really think there needs to be changes, is the best way to change something to participate in it and financially support it. So like that's the other thing that's a little bit in the back of my head. Like I don't know. And then I can't fish the local things, dude. All these local ABAs have rules where if you fish a tournament over $500, you can't fish the little local things. And I kind of enjoyed fishing a couple of these like 60, 40, 30 butt tournaments. And they were cool for fishing content. And the guys were super chill. You know, they're like, yeah, come on, fish. We don't care, you know, whatever. And not that I'd like win or anything, but, you know, people get weird when you bust out a bunch of cameras and stuff like that. So I feel bad about maybe sacrificing that because I did have fun with those guys, but I don't know.
Yeah, we got one vote for the ABTs.
I wouldn't fish the ABTs, just the ABAs. The ABTs are hardcore. Dude, I think the ABTs are more competitive than the Toyota series. Like the Alabama Bass Trail, dude, is serious. Them boys catch them. I don't think I could even play with those guys, dude. That's
like that Texas circuit too, that all those guys fish. The same, like it's a high level team tournament trail. They're every like anglers in action around here in Lake of the Ozarks. It's like the best of the best down there.
Yeah,
too. I mean, you got to show up. You know,
and Roland Martin series, the RMMM series, dude, in Florida. There's a few divisions that have, and it's interesting because I think that's part of the deal is a lot of these, you know, these big tournament things, they've either priced people out or whatever. So I think some of that stuff is turning back to the local things. And if there's the infrastructure and the lake notoriety with the volume of anglers that's necessary, if you get the right person leading the charge, you can really create a crazy paying for a local regional series, dude. Like there's like some big, like they're paying the Roland Martin Series Championship is next weekend and it pays like 35 grand, dude.
Jesus.
Yeah. Like it's freaking real. So, but you got to have the right, you know, locale. You have to have a decent amount of anglers, you know, so there needs to be a recipe, but the potential is there.
Yeah, the anglers in action at Lake of the Ozarks. It's like I think it's $300 a team.
Yep.
There'll be 200 teams. First place is 10 grand.
Yeah, dude.
And it qualifies for like contingency money. Like I think I don't know if it's affiliated with Phoenix or Nitro or somebody. But you get like $7,000 on top of that. So if you win and you're in the right boat, it can be very lucrative for you. Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask one more question and we'll let you go. And then I'm going to give something away. But what's the coolest thing that you've seen on Forward Fishing Sonar? Like some of the cool stuff. Like for me, I'll start first real quick. But seeing the shad and then seeing so shad ball like this and then seeing the bass push and that shad ball. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it goes like this. I love that. Or seeing that, like it open up from the center like that. You see that fish in there. That's when I see that, man, that's really cool.
You know that, so real quick, you know, that's a little trick you can use too, right? You know, we were talking about how you get the big bait balls and there's just everything everywhere and you don't. So one thing you can do, because they're moving around so much, you can't see them. And especially with the bluebacks on Smith Lake for spotted bass, when I see bait balls, even if I don't see a fish and I see the bait ball separate, like you're talking about, like the egg yolk thing. So I'll know there's a fish there somewhere because something is breaking it up. It might be a striper or whatever, but I'll actually fish the bait ball then. I'll use that as an indicator. If I see the bait ball separate or partition in that manner, I will cast there, dude, even without seeing a fish, because odds are there's some kind of predator that's breaking them up.
Yeah,
so
true.
Those are the little weird, like everybody thinks you're seeing a fish and catching it, but those are like the weird little tweaks that you can do. One of the coolest things that I've seen, and I've seen a bunch of, like, you know, throwing a glide bait, having them follow and eat it, like all that stuff's awesome. And like the jerk bait, I sunk a jerk bait, twitched them. I've seen smallmouth like lined up over a grass line, and the smallmouth are like 3 feet below the surface, but you never know they were there, like in 8 foot. It's just all kinds of dumb stuff. But last year at the beginning of ledge season on the TVA, it's a really weird deal where they get in schools, but they're not all glued to the bottom. A lot of times they're like schooling up over like a 15 to 20 foot ledge, but they're up in the water column, but they're not on the surface always. So I got on this one ledge and They were there, dude. So there's like a line of them there, and it's in that magic time as the sun's going down and they start freaking schooling, but it's not on the surface, dude. They're schooling like 8 to 9 foot below the surface. So like you'd see them all of a sudden, and you never know what was happening. It's dead freaking slick. So I caught a few, like literally fishing schooling fish submerged in like 8 foot over 15. So that was badass because they're like eating stuff. But then they started, as that light went down, they started popping up, not big groups of them, but there'd be like 1 or 2 that would pop up. And so I picked up a spook and I just panned back and forth. And dude, I could see these jokers coming up from like 10, 11, 8 foot of water. And I'd throw my bait right where they were going to come up before they were there. And I caught 2 of those jokers. They were both 5, dude. So like, I'm like, holy shit, here they come, here they come. You know, like, and it's like a 15-foot cast because they're right off the boat. You know, they're not that far out. I'd freaking gun it out there, dude. And before they were even to the top, I'd start walking, and you'd see the big gizzard shad come up and dance around. And I have a video up of it in one of my. It's from like last June or May or something. And dude, I would redirect the fish with the spook from my bait because I was like out in front of it, so that shad was up, but my spook's already going. So the shad kind of darts off. The fish is stupid, like he's triggered, dude. So my spook's already dum, dum, dum. And he crushed it. And I did that twice, dude. Literally just lines darting up from the bottom. And I would have my bait there before they even reached the surface. And then they'd go, psh. And it's funny. I did the same thing with the girl. She came out for a couple hours this past weekend. We were down there for Thanksgiving, and it wasn't catching fish, but we got a bunch of loons and a bunch of, you know, game fish birds that dive. So I would pan around a bridge, and I'd see this big freaking line, dude, freaking darting around in the balls of shad. And then it would bolt up. And I'd be like, hey, girl, watch right there. And like, dude, like a half second later, whoop, there's a freaking loon like popped up from freaking the bottom of it. So I can see them coming up from like eating the bait balls down there. And they bolt up, dude, and just set themselves on the surface. It was, there's some cool stuff like that. And I think that's the key. Like, that's the obvious topical stuff. There's so many things we can do with this, man. Like, there's so much, and some of it's not even like see the fish, catch the fish. It's environmental, noticing something about the environment or something that you see, and then you put 2 and 2 together and piece together a pattern where it's not even based on seeing the fish. It's based on seeing this factor, and you're able to identify this factor. And I think that's what's so cool about it.
Have you ever seen a Sasquatch on forward-facing sonar or anything? It's because, I mean, they swim. I think they could dive down. I mean, they're hiding.
I gotta link you up with my buddy. Every time I meet up with him, he tells me about the Sasquatch. Going out and hunting the Sasquatch.
We had my buddy Greg, who lives on Lake of the Ozarks. He threatened to buy a mannequin and put blocks on it and sink it underneath his neck for the guys that are forward-facing sonar.
That's so good, dude.
That's straight up mobster stuff.
Dude, that is so good.
Yeah, I never did it, but it could still happen. I got to go through.
Well, that's the other thing too, is these floating piles. I don't know if you've seen anything like that up by you, but on like Lanier and Smith, like guys have given up dropping freaking brush pile. I mean, they'll still drop Christmas trees and stuff off of docks, but they're dropping floating piles. So it has nothing to do with the thing being connected to the bottom, and you're literally fishing like a buoy that's floating 20 foot under the water, like in 50 foot.
Oh, really?
Huh. Yeah, dude. It's stupid. When you see that stuff on side scan, you're like, what? That must have been interference. And then you go and you point your beam at it and you're like, haha, that's a bucket. Like literally, that's like 4 buckets, like tied together with air bubbles in them. Like there's some weird, fun stuff, dude.
That's crazy. Very interesting. You got 5 more minutes?
Sure.
You gotta go. I said one more question, but the other one is sponsorship. People are always talking about sponsorships and getting. I know I'm these are kind of like cheesy questions, but at the same time, it's like kind of interesting in a way. How do you think somebody that's out there listening? There's probably some younger kids that are getting into tournament fishing and want to know about getting sponsorship. How can somebody approach that? You know, I'm not talking about like the 10% off code type of stuff, but you know, getting a actual legitimate working with the company type of thing? I mean, like some of the companies that you worked with and working with, how did those, you don't have to get specific, but generally, how did that stuff kind of come about?
I mean, it's really simple. One, it's about relationships, like, creating, nurturing, and developing a relationship. Because a lot of the things, I never made much money in this aside from ad revenue for like years and years. And partially it's because I'm an idiot. And I always thought it was about like creating content, sharing, and like, and it is, but there's more to it, because if you bring some money into the game, you can actually do more. So that's everybody always thinks like doing things with money, making some money doing this is a sellout deal. But ironically, if you do it the right way, it's actually an enabling and empowering thing, because it allows you to create more content, better content, and more information packed content. Like you do a better job, at least in my opinion. And that's how I've kind of approached it, because I like to be very careful when it comes to money and the YouTube channel, because the YouTube channel is mine. It's my like hobby fun thing. And if it ever gets weird, annoying, or way too money driven, it's not going to be fun. And I'm going to be an extremely sad, unbearable person. So I always try to tread very lightly with that. But relationships is the first thing. And then it sounds kind of lame too, but everything in life is a value transaction. Friendship is a value transaction. Like being with your partner, like man, woman, whatever, is a value transaction. It's all, you get what you put out of that relationship, and you grow value in that relationship based upon what you put into it. So I take the same approach when I'm dealing with people. I like people that I have a relationship with, I develop a relationship with. Like a lot of the supporters of the channel are people I have been friends with or had relationships with for like over 5 to 10 years. They're people that I know, dude, and I'm cool with them. I can communicate very easily with them. The expectations are very clear, because I will not allow anyone to drive the direction of the content of the channel. No one censors me. No one tells me what I can post, what I can't post. I do not tolerate that shit. But that relationship, though, is not just me saying I don't tolerate that. That's me being able to have a conversation with the people that want to support the channel, kind of explain my mission statement, lay it out, and then get them on board with that. Like I got to sell that concept. But that value transaction, and Jacob Fouts kind of mentioned it, you can't make any money unless you're on social media. Okay, well then you already know the process, dude. Go on social media and like create a brand. Like, so, have something to offer. Everybody tournament fishes. Everybody's going to fish the Toyota Series. Everybody's going to start club fishing or fishing the BFL. Everybody's going to do this. So what more do you bring to the table, and what value do you bring, and how do you market and sell that value? And that gives you leverage too. That's the other thing is, you're begging for money. Yes. But if you have skin in the game and you have something to offer, it's very service oriented, and it gives you leverage in the way that you deal and bargain with people. So I think that's very important. And then you're getting something from them. You're giving something to them. It's a transaction. You can identify where that transaction is happening. You can identify when that transaction is growing. So you need more out of a relationship. I try to keep it very unemotional and simple, other than the relationship part. That's emotional. But when it comes to really trying to identify, it's like, hey, dude, here's my value. Here's what I can offer to you. And here's what I expect when I bring these things to the table. That's the way I approach it. I'm not saying it's the right way. I do not make $1 million a year. Like there's a lot of guys making a lot more money than I am. So I'm not saying it's the most financially sound way to do it, but it's a way that's comfortable for me, and it's a way that builds relationships. And I like that. I like working with people that I like, appreciate, and want to support. So that's kind of the approach I've taken.
Yeah, I like that too. That's how the few companies that I'm working with, it's been a personal relationship has been built, whether it's just running into them, at a tournament or conversations, or just fishing with them, whatever. And if you know the people that are behind the company and you like the products, you're just going to promote them even more. And then and you're building like I'm not the type of person. I'm a loyal person. I mean, I'm loyal to people for the most part, until you just become an idiot, and then I'm done with you, right? Right. Yeah. But usually I do that I get that stuff out of the way first. So, so I don't have to go through all that. But I like to be with somebody for the long haul. So that's what building relationships, and kind of don't just jump on with the company because they're throwing something out at you. That's my opinion. It's like, do some research, try to get to know the people and get behind them. Are they cool people? Or are they douchebags? If they're the other, move on, find somebody else. But we got a freaking winner, man. We just now got a winner. I promise. I've been going through this. I'm glad you were talking so eloquently and kind of covered for me. The hook 16 was my number. The reason I chose 16 is because that is my mail route number. I am City 16 63701. The hook. Send me your email address to Gabe Montgomery Fishing, or 10 Horse Monty on Facebook, or 10 Horse Monty 6 on Instagram, and I will get you taken care of, man. So let's wrap this up, Mikey. As always, it's been
fun. I think we hit every aspect of the world, bro, of fishing. So as usual, covered a lot of bases. A lot of good content on here. Thanks for everybody for hanging out with us. I'm still going to come down and jump in the boat with you sometime. You're more than welcome. Like I said, we got that Airbnb house in Guntersville now, dude. You can stay there. You can stay at the house here, whatever you want to do. Just come on down and hang out. You gotta sleep with the dog, though. The dog snores, and it's your burden to bear, dude. All right, I can pull it off for a night. I'll hold my handheld in your face, and you can hold. Yeah, dude. We'll do like. It'll get really lame really quick. We'll time, right? It'll happen, man. It may be 5 years from now, but it'll eventually happen. So the invitation is always there, man. Awesome, I appreciate it. All right, man. Thanks again, everybody. We do this every Tuesday. Next week we got Keith Combs on. So I'm excited about that. Freaking Keith Combs, dude. That's why he's my doppelganger. He's my doppelganger, and I've wanted to have him on for. You gotta play around with him a little bit with that, dude. Yeah. So many people have said James Hetfield from Metallica and Keith Combs. That's the two people that. Dude, you know what you should do? Read up on Keith Combs' bio and find out where he's from, and play like, hey, bro, just a little personal question, like, is your mom from da-da-da? And like play something like, dude, like his mom might be your mom, and like you're some weird dude. You could have some fun with him, man. I'd probably never come on the podcast again, but dude, it would be fun. Punk him a little bit. That would be a challenge for me personally, for who I am, like my whole personality. It'd be hard for me to you're play pretty low key, yeah. It'd be fun though. It would be, dude. It'd be hilarious. Starts thinking you're his like half brother, dude. His mom was like cheating or something like that. That would be funny. Yeah, you can find out like his childhood pets, their names. Yeah, dude. And like you just, it's not like putting it in his face. You just like name drop a few things, and kind of hint at it, dude. Let him kind of connect the dots and get all up in his head, bro. It'd be fun. It'd be like you. He'd walk out of the room, but he would never come back. He'd be gone. I apologize for that too, man. I did not mean for that to happen, but life happens. That's the way it is. It's all good, bro. All right, man. I'll holler at you later. 10-4. It was fun, dude. Later. Adios.